Hey Rezlife friends, Shannon here, your Rezlife confirmation pastor. We are in the middle of a series where we are looking at the entire book of James, chapter by chapter. We are in week 3, which means that today we are going to be talking about James chapter 3. As a reminder, the book of James is found at the end of the New Testament, and it is believed to be written by James, the brother of Jesus. What I personally love about the book of James is that it is chock full of really practical advice and common sense wisdom for us as we live as followers of Jesus. And even though it was written thousands of years ago, James really applies to us as Christians even today. Overall, James is about wholehearted devotion to Jesus. To put it another way, the message of James is how to sincerely and completely love Jesus in our everyday lives. Now, I wonder, has your tongue ever gotten you in trouble? Or have you ever said something that you later regret? Does it ever seem like your mouth and your words are just out of control? When I was in elementary school, I was a pretty good student. I had really good grades, I followed directions, I got along pretty well with others. But I still was in trouble all the time with my teachers. Well, what happened? It's because I was always talking in class. My talking was disruptive and really disrespectful to my teachers. They were just trying to do their jobs. And my talking would land me in detention, or I would get certain privileges taken away. And my tongue consistently got me in trouble. Maybe you can relate. And even as an adult, sometimes my tongue still gets me in trouble. I might be in the middle of a heated argument or when I'm feeling stressed out, and I could say something I really don't mean. And then I later regret it. I then have to go back to that person I was talking to and apologize. It sometimes feels like it would have just been better if I hadn't said that mean thing in the first place. Now, if any of this sounds like you, then James chapter 3 is exactly what you need to hear today. If you have your Bible, we're going to be diving into James chapter 3, beginning in verse 2. It reads like this: "We all make mistakes often, but those who don't make mistakes with their words have reached full maturity. Like a bridled horse, they can control themselves entirely. When we bridle horses and put bits in their mouths to lead them wherever we want, we can control their whole bodies. Consider ships. They are so large that strong winds are needed to drive them. But pilots direct their ships wherever they want with a little rudder. In the same way, even though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts wildly. Think about this. A small flame can set a whole forest on fire." So in this passage, James uses 3 metaphors or images to describe how something really, really small can control something really, really big. A bit in a horse's mouth, a rudder on a large ship, and a flame that sets a whole forest on fire. Now, I'm not really much of a horseback rider, or a sailor, or a forest ranger, but let's see if we can break down these ideas a little bit. So people who ride horses put something called a bit in their horse's mouth that then attaches to the bridle and reins. And from there, the rider can guide and direct their horse where they need the horse to go. Now, something so small, a bit that can fit into the palm of my hand, controls an animal that weighs over 1,000 pounds. And similarly, a rudder is the part of the boat that allows it to steer or turn. Now, it's usually underwater and you can't really see it. And in comparison to the rest of the ship, it's actually pretty small. But you're gonna be really grateful for that rudder if you see another boat headed your direction, or you see an iceberg up ahead. And finally, James talks about a single flame setting a whole forest on fire. Now you probably recognize this guy. It's Smokey the Bear. His motto is only you can prevent wildfires. Now he's right, you know. Somewhere between 85 to 90% of the wildfires in the United States are caused by human carelessness. like leaving a campfire unattended or discarding a cigarette in a high burn area. Now, it's crazy that something so small and seemingly so harmless can end up destroying hundreds of acres of forests and even people's homes or crops. Now, in the same way that these three pretty small things, a horse's bit, a ship's rudder, and a single flame, they're all small, but they can cause big harm. Our tongue, while pretty small, can also cause big damage if used in wrong ways. Sometimes we can be careless or neglectful with our words, and we can cause harm to our relationships or our friendships with others. Our tongues, while small, can be very powerful. So you might be feeling pretty bummed out at this point, thinking about all the ways that you have used your words to cause harm instead of good. But I want to point us back to the very first words of our passage, the words I read today from James 3:2. We all make mistakes often. James knows that we are going to mess up when we are using our tongues. We are going to say mean things or react in anger or defensiveness. When that happens, we need to ask for forgiveness from God and apologize to those we have hurt. But James doesn't leave it there. He says again in James 3:2, we all make mistakes often, but those who don't make mistakes with their words have reached full maturity. Now, this phrase, full maturity, is another way of saying becoming more like Jesus. And in order to become more like Jesus, we need to remember to watch our words. In being careful with our words, we become more wholehearted and completely devoted to Jesus, which once again is the entire message, the entire point of the book of James. Well, how do we do this? Well, there's two things we can do. First, remember back to James chapter 1, verse 19. And that verse tells us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to grow angry. Sometimes controlling our tongue simply means learning to be silent. We don't always have to have that witty comeback or quick retort. In the words of all of our grandmothers everywhere, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And number two, the tongue doesn't only do great harm. Our words can also be a source of great blessing and encouragement as well. James 3:9-10 says this, with our tongue, we both bless the Lord and Father and curse human beings made in God's likeness. Blessing and cursing come from the same mouth. When we feel like cursing or tearing others down, I wonder, how can we use our tongue to bless and lift up others instead? I mean, how surprising would it be if in the middle of your next argument with your parents or your siblings, you just stopped and said, you know what? I'm still pretty angry right now, but I think you're pretty awesome. And thanks for being so great. They would just be blown away. They wouldn't know what to do. So bits and rudders and flames, they're neither all good nor all bad on their own. It's really how you use them. A single flame can light a glowing candle or a warm fireplace, or it can start an out-of-control forest fire. It's really just a matter of what you do with it. And it's the same with our tongues. We can choose to use our words to lift others up or to tear others down. We get to decide to bless instead of curse. So how are you going to choose to use your tongue and your words today? When we encourage others, we are choosing to put our tongue to good instead of harm. I challenge you to read the rest of James chapter 3 on your own or in your small groups. It's got a lot of other really great advice on how you can grow to full maturity as you become a wholehearted and devoted follower of Jesus. We'll see you back next time as we dig into James chapter 4.